Good evening, my name is Jordan Shanker. I'm the CEO of the AJCC. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being here to be part of a conversation and to talk about issues that are important to us. I hope you all also saw this piece of paper when you came in. If you didn't, please get one on your way out. It's a list of some of our upcoming activities, which provides a wide spectrum of perspective, information, and voices, which is quite intentional on our part because our role as a community institution is to be a space for having different kinds of conversations and offering different points of view. Not to espouse any particular one, and I imagine we may get into some things this evening where we might have different points of view, and that's okay. It's part of our role as a community institution. So I thank you for being here, and I thank you for being part of that conversation. I want to say thank you to our high society donors for being the support system that enables us to offer programs like this, to our North Peninsula Jewish community and collaborative partners who, in partnership with Rabbi Lori, help us to figure out the kinds of programs and experiences that our community needs and wants, and helps to spread the word so that people like you can be here to appreciate those kinds of things. I also want to remember and honor the memory of Judy Bloom, who passed this week, who was a long-time advocate for the JCC, an involved board member, participant in programs like these and with our development efforts, and up until about 5 months ago was a part-time swim teacher in our swimming pool. Her memory will be a fixture in this institution for years to come, so I want to remember her fondly tonight. I hope you enjoy our program this evening. I missed something. Lori will have to cover up for one of the things I missed that I was about to say. I know, I couldn't do it. So we're happy that you took the time to be here to spend some time in conversation, and we hope you'll find time to do some of the others that you find on this calendar. I will now turn it over to Rabbi Lori, who will introduce our evening speaker.
Okay, is this one working? How close do we need to be? No. How about now? Yes. Okay. By the time it's time for Q&A, we'll have this ready for you so we can hear you. So it's my great honor and privilege to introduce our Scholar in Residence this year. As you know, the Scholar in Residence program on the North Peninsula has been going for well over a decade, and we've had illustrious thinkers and leaders across the Jewish world come and share their thoughts, their struggles, their triumphs, their questions with us. And so at this time in Jewish history and world history, the Peninsula rabbis felt like it was important to have a conversation about what does it mean for Israel to be in our value system today. How do we understand liberal Zionism? What is our role as North American Jews and community in being in relationship with Israel and all of her beauty and complexity? And of course, that complexity just keeps unfolding every day more and more. And yet, Anat Hoffman, our wonderful guest, has been a leader at the forefront of this call for the Israel we want to see for many decades. So I'm really pleased she's here. I hope that you follow us around over the weekend. I thank my colleagues and their staffs for all the wonderful Oneg spreads and setups and tech and all the things that are going to make this really smooth. So Anat is a third-generation Israeli, that you'll hear more about her family story tonight. She was born in Jerusalem and moved to Haifa, and actually spent her undergraduate degree at UCLA for all 4 years. So California girl. Zooming ahead, she was named Person of the Year for Haaretz newspaper in 2012. The next year, she was named one of 50 influential Jews in the Jerusalem Post. And just 10 days ago, the BBC included her on the list of 100 most inspiring women in the world. So, Anat worked for 20 years as the executive director of the Religious Action Center based in Jerusalem, the IRAC. When you Google IRAC, which I hope you do, you have to scroll down a little. The algorithm isn't great. There's a lot of other things called IRAC, so it's Israel Religious Action Center, and you'll get right there and see all their amazing work. This is the advocacy and legal arm of the reform movement in Israel and working towards equality and diversity and pluralism across the country. There are 33 Supreme Court petitions in Anat's name, and she is the co-founder of Women of the Wall, which started in December 1988. So long and deep history. I know co-founded with Orthodox women and really surpasses all denominational boundaries. So quite illustrious, and we're glad you're here. I hope you tell the Ruth story because that also gives me hope. And since then, Action has been her middle name, even though she has officially retired from the role. We had about 40 rabbis this morning kick off this series, and we were all very inspired and moved to have an honest conversation. And so I hope you will follow in our example, and we'll kick off our night. Thank you.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I'd like to start with a prayer for Israel. Read it. My God, in this sacred moment, give us hope for Israel and her future. Renew our wonder at the miracle of the Jewish state. In the name of the pioneers who made the deserts bloom, give us the tools to cultivate diversity in Jewish expression in Israel. In the name of the fallen soldiers, give us courage to stand up to the words and ways of zealots, those in our own midst and those among our neighbors. In the name of the Israeli inventors who have amazed the world with their innovations, help us apply the same ingenuity to finding a path to peace. In the name of all these women and men, grant us the strength to conquer doubt and despair in Israel, replacing doubt with action, replacing despair with hope, and let us say Amen.
Who wrote that prayer?
I do. I must say that when Rabbi Lori turned right on red today, I was reminded of the liberty of having common sense, that the law here allows it, because if it's possible, if it's free, why not? Why stop at a red light if you can turn to the right, there's nobody over there. It's so liberating. I wanted to talk a bit about my grandfather Yuda, who I have a nice photo of him standing on it next to a horse and buggy in front of what is now the King David Hotel. The King David then is less than 1 story high. In the buggy he has rocks that he brought all the way from near Hebron to build the newly built King David. King David Hotel. He was a communist. He came to Israel in 1924. He was one of the founders of Kibbutz Ramat Rachel, and my mother is the first daughter of that kibbutz. In fact, her name is Varda. Are there Israelis here? The first Varda. They were going to name her Rosa, but they called their next door neighbor, who was the closest Jew living to Ramat Rachel, Yosef Shmuel Agnon. Agnon lived in Tapiot, which is the closest neighborhood to Ramat Rachel. He came, he congratulated them, and he said, Rosa is not Hebrew, and named her Varda. 1930, the first Varda. And my grandfather thought that building the new country will be strengthened by Jewish values. He didn't think that building the country in any way would conflict with Jewish values. One of the values he believed in is giving and taking, even from his grandchildren. It was regular on Hanukkah that he would give me a used envelope, usually from a how do we say that in English? HMO. A used envelope of an HMO, inside 3 bills of 3 different colors. He would give me the Hanukkah geld, and then he would say, "Is Saba getting nothing?" And I have to give him a bill. Ladies and gentlemen, It's an excellent thing to do. Grandparents are not just ATMs. It's very important that grandchildren learn to give. Many, many years later, when he and his wife, my grandmother, were in an old age home, Neve Simcha, happiness dwelling, in Kiryat Matasdorf in Jerusalem. After he passed away, we invited Savta to Seder. After the Seder, she said, "Did you notice? I just eat a fligelet. I just eat a little wing. I don't eat much. Can I stay?" And my husband and I took her in for the 6 remaining years of her life. I know I've run a little old age home for one woman. And if there's something I'm proud of, is that from age 80 to age 86, we took care of her. And this starts with the Hanukkah guilt. It starts with that grandparents and grandchildren, it's not a one-way street. And also, Israel is not a one-way street. You give and you take, and it has to be an exchange. We once admitted Savta to Sharet Tzedek, to the hospital, because I used to let her hear on the Walkman Beatles songs, and she used to move her head to the beat. I took her to the emergency room because I felt that she's not moving her head like usual. They never admitted anyone with such a diagnosis. But when the pneumonia hit her, she was already hooked to every antibiotic in the department, and we figured something's going on way before there were any symptoms to be seen. So, till 86. I think we know that the Israeli society is divided. Some people will tell you it's divided between the religious and the non-religious. Some people will say it's divided between the right and left. I can tell you what I think. I think it's divided between those who sleep well at night and those who can't sleep at all. And who are the ones who can't sleep? Any ideas? Who are not sleeping at night in Israel? Yeah?
Once we're under attack.
Those who are under attack. So people in very north and very south. Who else? Relatives of the hostages, of course.
Parents of kids in the military.
People who have children on the border or anybody serving in the military. People who were uprooted from their homes and are living for the last 460 days somewhere. Anybody else?
These people, the unrecognized people who live in the Negev,
The Bedouins?
the Bedouins, the what's next?
So the ones who were uprooted. Yeah. Who sleeps well at night in Israel today?
Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister sleeps well. The coalition of Israel is sleeping well. The ultra-Orthodox sleeping well. Yeah?
That's what the Haredi.
Yeah. The Haradim are sleeping well. And I think we should look at this divide. I've had a lifetime working on issues of religion and state. I looked at how religion affects us in negative ways, and I must say something went wrong in the Judaism that we developed in Israel. I know that the Israeli government is thinking of sending an army of shlichim, not the ones you have now, a different kind of program, to teach you something about Judaism. Please resist. Don't buy the lame, bankrupt product that we have in Israel, that most Israelis reject, that we call Judaism. It is not Judaism that we employ when we stop all public transportation on Shabbat. This is the number one issue that is bothering Israelis on this. You realize that we have only 1 day of rest. I envy you the weekend more than I can say. It's just wonderful. You finish Shabbat and you have another day of rest. Wow. We don't have it. On that 1 day of rest, a 15-year-old granddaughter cannot visit her grandmother in the hospital because there's no public transportation. And a 15-year-old cannot own a car. Or someone who doesn't have money to own a car. Or someone ecologically minded that doesn't want to own a car. All these people are incarcerated in their home every Shabbat, from early Friday to late Saturday night, unable to get anywhere. This is when you ask Israelis what is the number one, it's the lowest hanging fruit. That's the one that Israelis have had enough. And why are they not traveling? Because supposedly they're observing Shabbat. It is an abuse of Shabbat, actually, if a granddaughter cannot visit grandma in the hospital. Israelis cannot get married and divorced as they wish. There is no civil marriage in Israel and no civil divorce. There is only one way to get married, and that is Orthodox. I wrote a book years ago called 50 Ways to Wed Your Lover. It's out of print. 50 ways to get married all over the world. But all these ways, for example, my own son got married in Cyprus. Like many Israelis, he traveled to the island of love, and under a big cross and a picture of the Archbishop of Cyprus, the deputy mayor of Larnaca officiated in the wedding of the two Israelis, Michal and Ariel. When they finished the wedding, they received a little keychain that had Mazel Tov on it. They had a stack. There are 11,000 such weddings in Larnaca. And then they went to a restaurant. The menu was in Hebrew, hummus, trina, everything that we're used to. The taxi driver spoke Hebrew, took them to the airport, and that's the way. If I was a millionaire, I would buy a boat, move it just a few kilometers outside the territorial waters of Israel. Love boat. Going to Cyprus on your own, bring your whole family to love boat, and we will officiate for the weddings. But those weddings still, if you want to have a divorce, you have to get a divorce in the rabbinic court. You don't go back to Larnaca or Nicosia to get the divorce in Cyprus. The divorce in Israel is a bad news for women. There are no dayaniyot. There's no such thing. It's only ultra-Orthodox rabbis who are dayanim. They're basically, it's not that they're basic.
Translate.
Dayanim are judges in a religious court. It's not that they're hostile to women who are dancers, lawyers, rabbis, cantors. They just don't know anything like it. So when you appear in such a court, they see you as strange. You are not like their mother, their daughter, their wife, and the feeling is of hostility. Instead of being interested in a family being disintegrated now, in the fact that they're two human beings that are having a crisis, they're very focused on giving you the get. The get is written, by the way, on parchment with a turkey feather dipped in ink, I kid you not. And she has to put it under her left armpit and walk 6 steps. And they're all counting out loud. Aha. All 3 judges are counting how she walks 6 steps towards the window and 6 steps back. Because that's very important. Then they tear the get, so no other person can get divorced with the same parchment. Usually there's another humiliation on the way because a woman cannot testify in the court. And there's one testimony important. Who is this woman? Is this her name? Who is her father? And usually women, mistakenly, bring to court on that very dramatic day their best friend. And her best friend is usually a woman. A woman cannot testify. So like clockwork, she has to run outside the rabbinic court, grab the first man she sees, and say, "Would you please come upstairs with me? My name is Anat, my father's Baruch, my mother's Valda. Would you please come upstairs? Please, I'll give you anything. Just go upstairs." I used to bring tourist groups to see that. We'd stand outside the rabbinic court, and every time, I'm never disappointed. A woman would be running out, grab one of my male tourists, take them upstairs. It's clear to anyone that she is a stranger to him, and he is a stranger to her, and yet he can testify. And her best friend, who knows her nickname from kindergarten, she cannot speak. So There are 10,000 women in Israel who are unable to get a divorce. They are called Missalot get. Why? Because the get can be given only one way. A man can grant a get to a woman, not the other way. So this gives him an advantage. You want the get? Give me the house. You want the get? Give me the car. You want the get? Give me sole custody of the children. You don't want to give me that? I have time. The man has time. He can go and have 5 children with 5 other women. It's all kosher. But if she, while married to him, has a child with another person, that child is a mamzer. That's right. There are 2,000 listed mamzerim in Israel. In the last Gay parade, I tried to elicit some of them to be proud mamzerim and walk in the Gay parade with signs, I'm a proud mamzer. But think of it, a blacklist by the Ministry of Religious Affairs of people who had nothing to do with that status. Their mother was unable to get a divorce. She had a relationship with another person. That is a reason for that. They're, of course, not to be wedded in Israel. There are 600,000 people who cannot get married in Israel. Many of them are questionably Jewish because their father is Jewish, but their mother less Jewish. So they are considered not having a religious assignment. So there are about 350 or 400,000 of them. There are all these people who are kohanim and cannot marry a grusha, cannot marry a divorced person, and they cannot marry a convert either. And there are millions of Israelis who don't want to get married in an Orthodox wedding where only he gives the ring, only he does the ketubah is like a contract, and she's bought and sold like a cow. Years ago, I had 2 events to explain this to you. It was called 4 Weddings and a Statement, 3 Weddings and a Statement, and one was in Temple Emmanuel on 5th Avenue in New York. The other was in Washington Hebrew, in the midst of the AIPAC conference in Washington. We brought 3 couples from Israel. One couple was a convert and an Israeli that the Rabbanut does not recognize the convert as a Jewish woman. The other couple was gay, and another couple was a woman who has a PhD in gender studies and unwilling to get bought and sold like a cow. And this was very, very beautiful. 1,500 of you came to the wedding of people you do not know. We brought the chuppot from Israel, but there was an orchestra playing Sunrise, Sunset as the 3 brides came in. What's the name of that store that's called Guess with the Dress?
Wedding.
Kleinfeld.
What?
Kleinfeld's.
Kleinfeld, right, Mr. Kleinfeld, yes. He told us that we could take dresses, and for sure I assumed that it's rented. So we went to Kleinfeld's factory, there were 20,000 dresses, and seamstress is an unbelievable place. Our brides all chose dresses, anything they wanted, tiaras and shoes and everything. And at the end of the ceremony, I turned and said, when do we and how do we return it to you? Because it is Sunday and maybe the store is closed. And he looked at me and said, we don't take dresses back. So these were dresses. We took anything. We didn't okay. So he was at the wedding. Also the president of the Reform Movement spoke. We brought a few members of Knesset to speak. And at the end, when we served cupcakes with rings inside, we had a statement. The statement was to ask 1,500 of you to write a statement to the Prime Minister of Israel. Freedom of choice in marriage and divorce in Israel now. That was an event, both times, that really raised awareness towards this issue in Israel. One of the moving moments was when Shmuel, maybe you remember that, Alan. Shmuel is a 23-year-old soldier. His mother passed away. He gets a call from the Chevra Kadisha, we will not bury her in a Jewish, we will not bury her in the cemetery. Why, he says, because she's a convert. But she was an Orthodox convert. Yes, they said, but she's a deaf Romanian Orthodox convert. And we don't believe the deaf actually understand the Shema. And because of that, your mother is not Jewish. But that means that you're not Jewish. He spoke very passionately. He was pitted as an Israeli. I refused to get married in Israel. And so these testimonies were very moving. If you want to see pictures, because in the Pulitzer Award photographer took pictures of our beautiful brides, look up 3 weddings in a statement, New York Times, both times, and Washington Post. The Washington wedding was in the Washington Post.
What year was this?
Just look it up, you'll see it appears, and the photos are just out of this world of our brides. We took over the wedding section of the So this issue is burning Israelis, and in fact there's 40% of Israelis do not get married in our state. Should I mention to you that marriage is a basic civil right and appears in the UN Charter of Basic Rights of Human Beings? The fact that 600,000 Israelis cannot get married in Israel is unacceptable. It's as if a big black umbrella is all over Israel, and we cannot do freely Jewish things as we can do here. And the Israelis here feel more free to be Jewish than they are in Israel. Do you know that they took the air out of my tires because I had a sticker on my car with a subversive statement, there's more than one way to be Jewish. Your children say, duh, but in Israel, revolutionary. I'll move a little bit on burial. There's just one way to get buried in Israel. It's the Orthodox way. There are 300 cemeteries that are Orthodox and 8 that allow for civil burial. Civil burial means that a Reform conservative rabbi can run the ceremony, that women can participate equally in the ceremony, that there you can play music in the ceremony. My brother lost his wife in a terrible accident, and both of them were Bach lovers and wanted to play the Lacrimosa chapter of the Requiem at her funeral. And the Chevra Kadisha person innocently asked him if the composer is Jewish. Okay. 10% of all you pay in a hotel when you visit Israel is for the kashrut of the hotel. And the kashrut inspector lives in the hotel on Shabbat, doesn't come alone, usually he comes with his wife and many children. They usually get the top suite on the way. In the King David, they get the presidential suite. Have you had a breakfast in a hotel in Shabbat in the morning? But if you are a Reform congregation and you want on Friday night to have musical instruments and to have Kabbalat Shabbat, because of the kashrut inspector, they won't allow you to do that. Because it's musical instruments on Shabbat. This is illegal. We have to fight that. But many times a group that's coming is not ready to fight, and they just give up. But you understand that this is a tyranny of kashrut. I once published a study that looked at kosher meat, and I saw that the more black kosher, the less fit for human consumption it is. I found more microbes in the most kasher meat in Israel, and I found that the Rabbanut kashrut, the regular one of the state, was the cleanest one. So I I would like to have more than one way to be kasher. There should be an Orthodox kashrut for those who want it, but I think it's time to reform the conservative movement. Gain kashrut to foods, and it won't be just how the animals slaughtered, but it will be kashrut. How are people treated? How are the workers treated? How is it environmentally sound? We should get into that. I'm worried about the fact that so many Israelis are ignorant of Judaism. Many of the Israelis who come here, learn here, basic stuff about Judaism they didn't learn at home. And how could they learn? Who will teach them Judaism in the Israeli schools? If Rabbi Mori is not considered a rabbi in Israel, you know why? Because he's a graduate of the Jewish Theological Seminary. And the Jewish Theological Seminary is not recognized in Israel as an institution of Jewish learning. What? HUC and JPS are not recognized as institutions of Jewish learning? Do you know that every university in the world recognizes these institutions? The Pope recognizes these institutions. But the state of Israel chose not to. That is chutzpah of a very high degree. Don't you agree? So, who will teach our children, the secular children of Israel, who will teach them Judaism if she cannot enter the school? In some cases, they allow an ultra-Orthodox person to enter the school. The parents are up in arms. He asks, what does your family do on Friday night? What does your mother do? How does she dress? They start criticizing the way of life of 2 million secular Israelis. So the result is ignorance. That is not what the idea was when the Jewish state was founded. The idea was that we will enjoy diversity, that we won't think that some of us have seen the light and some of us in the darkness. There are many lights.
There are many lights.
So I think there's a lot for us to learn from you, because you live diversity. This institution is diversity, and you are blessed by it. You are enriched by it. You're not. You don't lose anything by having many opinions and many ways. I want to say something about racism in Israel. Racism in Israel is growing. I remember that when Meir Kahane made Aliyah to Israel, Meir Kahane was born in the Bronx, Brooklyn. He made Aliyah in 1971. He tried to enter the Knesset in 77 and in 81, and he failed. In 84, he got in as a lone member of Knesset. He was treated as a pariah. When he spoke, other members of the Knesset left the Knesset, but he planted seeds that we are now, sadly, we're seeing these seeds grow. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the head of Otzma Yehudit, Jewish Power, is a racist, a Kahanist, he says that. Tragically, we were not able to bar him from running to the Knesset, and he is spreading hate. He is saying racist things, and he has the rabbis to support him. This is a strange diversion of the Jewish DNA. We should be the last people in the world who are racist. And he says blanket statements about the 1.6 million Israelis who are Arab. 1.6 million. Let me tell you what they do. They are the backbone of Israel's health system. If you break a leg in Israel and you get to the emergency room, within minutes you are treated by an Arab. 34% of all our nurses are Arab. 25% of all our doctors are Arabs. 50% and more are our pharmacologists. Lab technicians, 40% or more. This is way above and beyond their proportion in the population. Their proportion is 21%. But they are the backbone of our health system. There's so much to learn from our health system. Go to an Israeli hospital and you'll see how Jews and Arabs save lives together, and there's no problem. Recently there was a kid in Neve Yaakov, a neighborhood of Jerusalem, who was stabbed by another kid from a nearby Arab village. The kid that stabbed the Jewish boy was named Muhammad. The Jewish boy was brought to the Mount Scopus hospital, Hadassah Hospital, and was saved, as I said, by Arab nurses and Arab doctors. In fact, the surgeon, for the 1 second that he moved from the corridor to the surgery room, he said on Israeli television, "Muhammad stabbed and Muhammad will save." Later on, Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to visit the stabbed boy in the Mount Scopus Hospital. So his security service came first, and they asked all Arabs to be removed from the floor. And they took the nurse that took this kid from emergency room to the ward, followed and locked her in the closet with the curtain, with the towels and with curtains and things. And when I interviewed her as she walked, as she was released, and she said, "What? If only my staff knew," she said, if they didn't lock me into the broom closet before, they would have gone crazy. They are a team. And look how blind if she wanted to kill this kid, his life was in her hands for days before Prime Minister Netanyahu came. So go to the health system and see how things are right in the health system. Something works there, and I think we should all follow that example. I get a lot of hope. In fact, we wrote a report called Heroes of Health that looks not only at existing numbers, but future numbers, and it's going to be even more. That is, Israel's health system is going to be mostly held by minorities, and that is a wonderful experience for all of us. Very good for us. When we see videos of what's happening in Gaza, for example, last night on Israeli television, they showed hungry girls, younger than 8 years old, holding bowls, freezing cold. It's very cold in the desert at night, very cold. Begging for food. Anybody who felt the human reaction is to feel for these kids was told that means they don't care for the hostages and don't care for the people the 1,600 Israelis who were killed in the 7th of October. No, I don't think that caring for our own means to be indifferent to other people's pain, particularly innocent other people. And if anyone here believes that 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza are all guilty, then this is not possible. There are many innocent people in Gaza, and we should feel for them and their suffering right now, and it doesn't make us one iota less caring for our own people, our own injury, the own catastrophe that happened to us. This is the worst thing that happened in my lifetime in Israel. All these words are correct, and yet I have a Jewish heart. And I do feel for a frozen kid, an 8-year-old frozen kid in Gaza now, and I'd like the war to end. I want to say one last word before I open it to your comments and questions, and that's about the term Jewish blood. It's a tragedy that the state of Israel chose to adopt a German term of Jewish blood. The Nuremberg laws looked at how much Jewish blood is in somebody's body. That is so detestable. How could we possibly take this term? Our own tradition has 2 terms for blood. Dam naki, innocent blood. Dmei achicha, the blood of your brother. That's it. We don't look at how much Jewish blood did Ruth, the Moabite, have? 0. So, She's the grandmother of David. She'd be rejected. I once actually did a correspondence between the Minister of the Interior and Ruth the Moabite. He sent her back to Moab, to the Israeli embassy, to prove that she really was the wife of Machlon, and with a really death certificate that is. And what does it mean that she wants to be Jewish? That's not enough. She should go through a course. I showed how she would have been rejected by our ministry today. So I'd like to reject this idea of Jewish blood and say that all we should look at is innocent blood and our brother's blood and care about that and nothing more. I want to end with something good, and that is that on the plane over here, I talked to two of the stewardesses of the aisle and asked them, how's it going with ultra-Orthodox men demanding women to remove themselves so they can sit? And they said, we're so grateful to you that we are not to be involved. I don't know if you realize our case against them. I won a precedent that if a stewardess asks you to move, you will be compensated by 18,000 shekel, which is like a business class back and forth to Israel. So they are not to interfere. A man can turn to you when you're in a plane and say to you, would you move? I'm not willing to sit next to you. And you can turn to him and say, no, sir, I'm not willing to move. And that's it. The stewardess is not to tell you to move, because the boarding pass is your contract, and it says this is your seat, and no one can tell you to move. Now, if, a father with a 4-year-old is asking you to move because he wants to sit next to his kid, you can move if you want. But someone says, I don't like your gender, I don't want to sit next to you, well, too bad. I can't change it.
Yes, you can.
So that was good news. That on the one hand, she said that it happens on every flight back from New York to Tel Aviv or Tel Aviv, New York. But she said it's wonderful that I say to them, I'm forbidden from any interference. You'll have to deal with it on your own. Okay, so now I'd like to hear your comments, your questions.
Okay, so project even if you have the microphone. No? I think it is working.
It's working.
Don't give each other germs, just get I just want to say, first of all, thank you for the framing, and I hope you'll share a little about your own grandchildren child as well, your own grandchild as well, to frame it out. Yeah. I want to just remind us we have an entire weekend to talk about these topics, so let's not feel like we have to address every single piece tonight. We'll have about 20 minutes or so for Q&A. Keep your question to a question. You can give the commentary to your friends at the reception or on the way home. We just don't have time for all of your personal opinions. We want to direct the questions to Anat. Thank you for understanding. Okay, Denise Zakaria.
Anat, I was a long-time reporter in Israel for a long time, covered you back in the 90s. Nice to see you. I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about how you see Israel post-October 7th and where you see this going, not in terms of when the war is going to end, but the country in general in the future. And also, if you would talk about Israel's isolation right now, internationally, and whether or not people in Israel really grasp the depth of what happened here on campuses around the world, and sort of how you see whether Israel can sort of reclaim some status.
Thank you for this very profound question. This is the worst I've ever experienced. I think Israelis are kidding themselves that we don't need the world. We are strong enough without, blind to the idea and the importance of being part of the family of countries. And we belittle the anti-Semitism that you experience, particularly on the campuses. And unfortunately, unfortunately the lesson has not yet been learned. I'm very worried about our future, but I get a lot of hope from the protests against the government. We're not talking little protests. In American terms, it's like 9 million people going to Washington every week. And there is great leadership that is born out of that protest. And wonderful administration. I belong to a group called the Yom Huda, a day of, how do you say it?
Order.
No?
The day of order?
No, זה עברית, אבל איך אומרים את זה? Like judgment day. If the Attorney General of Israel will be fired, right now this woman is holding on her shoulder the entire democracy. There are literally hundreds of thousands of Israelis that have volunteered and are prepared to move to Jerusalem and camp there. Doesn't matter the weather, doesn't matter the time. And this is being organized in spectacular ways by very young people. So that gives me hope. But this coalition has abused the sentiments of half the people of Israel. And we're in a serious rift between us. Are we going to get us into a civil war? It's possible. I think the first shot has been shot on the 4th of November 1995. We're talking about 3 hollow bullets on the back of our Prime Minister and Minister of Defense. The killer is in jail. 32 women offered to marry him. One of them did. He has 3 children already in jail. There's a movement called Hu Yig'al Otanu. He will redeem us. His name is Yig'al. There's a movement to free him and make him president of Israel, member of Knesset, minister of defense, all sorts of crazy ideas. But the worst thing is the religious support. Rabbis support what he did. Supposedly, Rabin was an enemy of the Jewish people, and he did the right thing by voting twice, once in the polling booth and once by killing our Prime Minister that was embarked on peace. I think that's the first shot.
Yes, thank you. Just a question, the modern Orthodox in Israel, are they Sugim, they call it? Or the ones who wear the little kippah? I don't know. But are they allowed to perform marriages? Are they as involved in divorce, marriage, and all that? And are they a little more liberal? That's my question.
So I would say that people like Zohar, or what you're talking about, are the fist in a velvet glove. They are Orthodox, but they will allow the bride under the chuppah to give, without any words, a ring to the guy. And they will allow the ketubah to be written in Hebrew instead of in Aramaic. But basically it's a strict Orthodox wedding. And I'm not saying the Sugim are the modern Orthodox. There are modern Orthodox in Israel, and they are the rarest birds. Men and women who are pulling an Orthodoxy's corset and are saying, let's take it off. These are women who are studying to be Talmidot Chachamot and are ready to call themselves rabbis. Very learned women. So there are some institutions of that kind, but they are so rare. And their own children are saying to them, you have to be religious, then all the way, let's be ultra-Orthodox. It's hard for them to retain this, but they are so rare and wonderful. They are an excellent, we have them in our Women of the Wall. They're the most radical part of our group. You think the Reformer? No. It's the modern Orthodox women in our group that are always, let's go and do the hard thing. I'm a great admirer of them. But some Suvim are very right-wing and are in the settlements and are very oblivious to the pain of others. complicated country. If there was another Jewish state, I'd be on the first place. However, there is no other choice, that we would not be given a try at having a sovereign Jewish state. This is our one chance. We gotta fix this one. And you're right when you're saying that right now we're heading towards a very hard lesson, and we're gonna have to learn it. Is it still worthwhile to be an Israeli? Yes. I think it gives my life great meaning, and I'm a proponent of a life in a pursuit of meaning rather than pursuit of happiness, and I think happiness does happen as a side effect when you have meaning. But it's very hard to be an Israeli now, and I don't know if you realize the numbers are very high of Israelis who are leaving Israel, particularly young, upwardly mobile, Tel Aviv. My son, who lives in London, tells me that every day he gets a call from someone from his class or army unit asking how is it in London. But my other two children are in Israel, and but I wouldn't say they're not thinking. They were offered to leave for 10 years. They do it. That's a very bad situation. Yeah. Shalom.
Shalom. Is Israel, do they hear the voices of the more liberal voices of the diaspora?
I would say that when I open the, Oshkosh Jewish magazine, I will find something about Israel. And in the Israeli papers, I would say once in 2 weeks, I may find something about the diaspora. We couldn't care less. And it's time to change that. You are important, you are kind, you are smart, you are important, and we have to change that. Israelis act like, you realize that the Jewish community in North America is a tremendous strategic asset for the Israeli interests in North America. You are very important, and we treat you as if you are for granted. We insult you regularly, and you are very polite, and you allow it. I think it's time you change that. I would like to see North American Jews start standing up for their own rights with Israelis. Every time an Israeli wants to meet you, a member of Knesset, a minister, ask him the hard questions. Usually, when I see a North American crowd talk to a minister or the Israeli government, they ask exactly what he wants to be asked. There he is, with a map under his armpit, a map of tiny little Israel surrounded by all our enemies, and you ask him about Iran. Thank you, guys, that's what I want to talk about. Ask him why your rabbi is not recognized as a rabbi in the state of Israel. That's the question he has to answer. And that's where his map doesn't come in. And besides, don't deal with our security issues. Ask about Jewish issues. There's plenty of that. Ask about that. Why Hebrew Union College is not recognized in Israel as an institution of Jewish learning. And he'll then say, this courageous guy, what can I do? It's the ultra-Orthodox demand. So what can I do? Do something. Do something. We are millions of people. We are the second largest Jewish community in the world. These are our rabbis. How can you turn your back to them? How can they not perform a wedding in Israel? Good question. Yeah.
So thank you. You bring up a lot of things that matter to many of us in this room in terms of the marriages and things like that. How do we get, especially the younger generation here, to advocate for those things rather than denouncing Israel because of those things? How do we advocate and simultaneously support, especially with the younger generation? Because I know that's something that we're struggling with here, and we fear that we're losing them.
First, this is an excellent question. I don't think I'm the person to answer it. I don't know your youth well enough. I know how to get Israeli youth riled up around issues like women of the wall. We have it about North American kids. But I think the way you phrased it is excellent. How can we get them off the diet of denouncing into a diet of caring and action for Israel? I think it has to do with the good manners. Show them that you are willing to kick ass. This morning I heard that the Consul General of Israel treated the Reform conservative rabbis who came to a meeting with him with disrespect, a tacit disrespect. But they came out feeling that he really couldn't care less about what they had to say. So it's time to stop meeting with him in his own floor. It's time to make a nuisance of yourselves downstairs. Stop traffic. Come up with your Torahs and your children and your buses and the rabbis, and have the Consul General come down and beg you to come upstairs and say the Goyim are watching. This is terrible. And also in Jerusalem, they're going to ask him, can't you deal with the Jews here, that they are making a nuisance of themselves in the traffic? It's yes. We want you to hear us and not just just bring us to a room and disrespect us. There's so much for us to learn from them.
You said something really profound when you started. You talked about your great-grandfather bringing a set of Jewish values and building a country around those Jewish values. And you're saying right now the kids don't get those values because the person who would be teaching them is somebody who comes from a very, very strict view of Jewish values. My first question is sort of two parts. First, where did you get your Jewish values? And the second is, who do you think would be teaching those values to the kids in Israel now? If it wasn't the ultra-Orthodox, what should we be doing as part of that to make that, to create that education system from the outside?
Well, here's the question. What are Jewish values? And what should be the Jewish values of the Jewish state? Israelis tell you that you don't have a say in that. Why? You don't pay taxes. You don't fight in the wars. Who are you anyway? An ATM. Give us money and shut up. You hear that all the way, from the taxi driver from Ben Gurion to your hotel. I fought in 5 wars. You don't tell us what to do. This has to stop. No Israeli, even if he went to 100 wars, can tell a North American Jew that he doesn't have a place around the table when we discuss Jewish values. Your opinion is as important and as valuable as mine. Israelis are #1 in the world in the OECD in tax evasion, and second, only 1 in 10 soldiers is in combat. Very likely that the taxi driver was in the war, but he was a driver in the war. So it's enough with Israeli arrogance on this thing. We are extremely arrogant. One of the wonderful things that happens is when Shinshinim come back to Israel after being with you, they come back more educated in Judaism, loving the stuff, which they thought they hate, and they thought they hated because of the lame, bankrupt product that we have in Israel. Well, there's so much for a birthright going both ways. For us to send kids here and just be here for a day and see how you get along, and what you do, and how you solve issues, and how nice you are to each other, and how you turn right up the red. They'll come back better Israelis. I want to tell you that diaspora is a botanical term. It is a plant that moves itself from one place to another by the wind. The diaspora is we are part of you, and you are part of us. It's time that you insisted on giving us good advice. Altogether, I believe that love is what remains after you know the truth. You have to learn the truth about us, not have puppy love about us. When people still think of Golda Meir, Jaffa oranges, the Israeli soldier with the woman soldier with the machine gun, and think of them as the icons of Israel, wake up. There are other icons now, some of them very disturbing, and we need to talk truth to each other. Israel is a worthwhile project. One of the reasons, the Hebrew language, the greatest achievement of Zionism, the fact that 10 million people are speaking a language that was dead as a doornail or a doorknob? Doornail. What a great. A doornail And now we love in Hebrew and we curse in Hebrew, and there are brand new words in Hebrew. I, in fact, contributed to 2 words in Hebrew. One is the word integrity. A letter from the Academy of Words and Letters saying, use it in a sentence, please. I used integrity. Integrity in Hebrew is yoshra. Yoshra. Yashar is straight, yoshra is integrity. I saw that it works. I sent them another letter. I want a word for accountability. I used it in a sentence. Accountability is a new word, very hard to pronounce. Achrayutiyut. Say it. Achrayutiyut. More people have said it here than in the But think about it. We are 76 years old, and integrity is a few years old. Accountability is just a few. What does it mean? A society that doesn't even have the words for this. We've got some growing to do.
Now, you mentioned when you kind of were going through this response about the diaspora, that because we don't pay taxes, and what can we do? It's not exactly what you said, but I wanted to know if you could at least make reference to the opportunity we have for the World Zionist elections coming up in March, actually.
So I would like to trouble you, Lori, to read what Eretz Kodesh, the faction that's running against the Reform and Conservative movement, what they are writing in their propaganda to get their people to vote.
I'm not sure everybody knows that there is a World Zionist election and how it affects an opportunity for North Americans. That would be, I appreciate the
In
statement
the
on
spring,
that.
there's going to be an election. You guys are the only ones who can vote. Israelis cannot vote on that. These institutions and the World Zionist Congress actually influence policy in Israel, and they also have enormous amounts of money. The ultra-Orthodox want to take that money. They did very well in the past elections. They want to do twice as well this time. Millions and millions of your money is going to ultra-Orthodox boys who are not Zionists, but because they ran such a good campaign in the World Zionist Organization, they're getting this funding. It's time to stop it. We need to get at least 60,000 of you to vote. That's not a high number. So here's their stuff. Thank you, Alan. You're right.
And we do have a great handout with all the information, and we'll also send it to you. So this is why we should vote. Okay. So at the top in Hebrew it says Shebachol dor vador omdim aleinu. From the Haggadah, in every generation there are those who stand against us. Okay, in Hebrew. Then it says reformers versus Torah. Reformers sued to stop government programs for Kolal Yogalit, which you might want to tell us what that is. Result, the courts stopped the funds.
That's a corrupt organization that was giving people who are fake students enormous amounts of money just to be listed there, not evade army conscription. They did not give their reports for 10 years to the Attorney General of Israel, and the money was stopped. That is and we were instigating that
And the weed inside.
the reform movement, yeah.
Reformers versus Kedusha. Reformers are behind the ongoing court cases brought by the women of the wall. Result, the litigation is ongoing for years.
Reformers against Kedusha. We are against holiness because women of the wall insist on the right to pray out loud, read from the Torah, wear a talit, and put on phylacteries. That's against holiness. And finally,
Reformers versus Sniut, modesty. Reformers sued to prevent separate seating on buses. Result, bus companies can no longer designate separate seating on buses.
women were assigned to the back, men to the front. In other words, but remember, it starts with the statement from the Haggadah that in every generation there are people there to hurt us. And so Reform Conservative are there to hurt us. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to have a very good reason not to vote for a ARTSA, the Reform faction or Masulti or Nabi for the conservative faction. You've got to do that because if Eretz Kodesh takes over, all the Jewish agency's money will be going to people who do not serve, who do not study core curriculum, who are actually unemployable adults. This is one of the biggest threats economically to Israel. The fact that in the year, 2030, a quarter of our student body will be kids who don't know math or science or English or civics or anything, just studying Torah. I saw that in America, you have ultra-Orthodox men working. In fact, Anat has a poster that shows men packing equipment at a store called B&H in New York. B&H sells camera equipment. You see these men with 3 big packages, and it says, if you want to see them work, $1,500 round trip to New York. Because the first question Israelis ask when they go into B&H, when they see that everyone there is ultra-Orthodox, you know about cameras? You work? We're shocked. They're working. Because if he calls the governor of New York and says, I want to devote my life to studying Torah, the governor will say, Gesundheit, go ahead and do it. Not on my dime. But in Israel, we don't see them working. You have to go to New York to see that. It's possible to be an ultra-Orthodox person and ride the subway in New York next to a woman without asking her to move. Why don't they do it in New York? Because they can't get away with it. Why are they doing it in Israel? Because they can get away with it. Don't let them get away with it. Vote for either Alza or Sociology. And this Eretz Kodesh business could really have hundreds of millions of shekels to people who are really not contributing to our society.
Is there one more question to round out the night?
How do we get the ballots to vote?
Oh, I'll share with her. Yeah, I'll give everybody the handout later. Miriam, do you want to close out?
You mentioned you seek meaning, not happiness, which reminds me of Viktor Frankl, which reminds me of the Holocaust. My question is, with the passing of the Holocaust generation, how do you see that impacting what you're all these issues that you're talking about now?
The impact of the Holocaust on Israelis today is enormous. In fact, I believe that Israelis have a Shoah moment, a Holocaust moment every day. Many Israelis deny it, and then I say it to them, and then they call the next day and they say, no, now that you mention it, I do think of the Shoah every day. Did you think of the Shoah today? No. Yeah, when? Miriam, did you think about it?
Yes.
When?
Because I'm a Holocaust educator, the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and my profession and my personal affinities are Holocaust.
Did anyone else think about it, and what reminded you? Yeah?
Almost my whole entire grandfather's family was killed in the Holocaust.
And what reminded you of them?
I think about it every day. The fires and...
The fires, of course. When do you think about the Shoah?
I was on a walk with my older daughter today, and we were talking about the existence of God, and when hard things happen, and I love it.
Any more? Yeah?
My second cousin started a program called Teach the Shoah, and it's worldwide. And she went through a training program in Israel at Yad Vashem, and then created this program.
And you thought of her today?
I thought of her a lot today.
So I'll tell you when Israelis think about the Shoah. When they see hair at a barber shop on the floor, when they see shoes gathered together, you don't want to go any place with shoes. When they're huddled together in an elevator or stuck with a lot of people, when they stand in line for food, when they see bread on ledges or on the sidewalk, when a baby is crying incessantly and in a closed area. I was renting an apartment in Jerusalem, and I was lingered 1/10 of a millionth of a second at a little cove next to the toilet. And the realtor says, "You're having a Shoah moment, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, how did you know?" She said, "Everybody does." Everyone is thinking, could this ledge hold a little kid or something? Israelis, when there's a blonde baby born with blue eyes, say, oh, we would be saved. It's very present in our lives. What replaces it now is the hospitals. We eat a nice meal and we think, what are they having? We're in the sun and we think, where are they? We have a family gathering and we think about that. So now the hostage moment has kind of replaced the Shoah moment. But I think we learned the wrong lesson of the Shoah. The idea of the lesson to learn is not how you murder 6 million people. It's how does a democracy disintegrate? How does a democracy become racist? How does a democracy turn against a minority within itself and declare all of them the enemy? How do you become indifferent to human suffering? These are the lessons we have to look at. Thank you so much.
We have evaluations, if we like to put them at the aisle, because we don't know exactly which seats are full. We'd love to get evaluations as we go, so in case there's anything to fine tune, we'll do so. That was Anat's request. We will see you tomorrow at Peninsula Temple Shalom. Rebecca has pencils in the back, but please just take a minute to do these now. We'll see you at 6:30 tomorrow night for services. There are lots of brochures both about our calendar and this weekend's calendar. Take what you need, Lila, Joe. Thank you so much.